centre had sucked out the soul of democracy from the parliament, which is why they don't feel the need for this new building at all, let alone them being in attendance when that inauguration happens. But is this criticism valid of the opposition? The central government and the BJP has outrightly rejected these allegations. They say it's nothing but a needless provocation and a needless controversy. The opposition is finding faults when none exist, is what the central government came out and said. They even cited precedents from the Congress's time to counter this criticism. Let's take a look at some of the past inaugurations of legislative buildings. In 1975, Indira Gandhi inaugurated the Parliament House Annex. In 1981, Indira Gandhi inaugurated the new Maharashtra Assembly. She was not a member of the Assembly then. Why then was she present, asked the BJP. In 1987, Rajiv Gandhi laid the foundation stone of the Parliament Library building. In 2010, then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh inaugurated the Tamil Nadu Secretariat. The next year, Manmohan Singh and Sonia Gandhi inaugurated the Manipur Assembly. In 2014, Jharkhand and Assam Chief Ministers laid the foundation stones for their new assemblies, but the governors were not invited. That too was breach of protocol, as a reminder from the BJP to the opposition. In 2018, the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister laid the foundation stone of the new assembly. Then again, the governor was not invited, claims the BJP. Cut to 2019. Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar inaugurated the Central Hall in the Assembly. Again, there was a breach of protocol, they say. In 2020, not too long ago, Sonia Gandhi led the foundation stone of the new Chhattisgarh Assembly. The governor was not invited back then again. This year, Telangana Chief Minister K. Chandrasekhar Rao inaugurated the new assembly building. Again, who was missing? The governor. So is this not breach of protocol, or is protocol and propriety an excuse of convenience, asked the BJP. So is this politics petty? Is this politics needed? Is this what the new India needs? That's the big debate on the Right Stand tonight.
Head of the parliament is Rashtrapati. See, Prime Minister is the leader of the Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha, Piyush Goyal is the leader. So who is the main leader? Main leader is Rashtrapati.
हम लोगों का मानना है कि राष्ट्रपति जो हैं उनसे जो है उद्घाटन कराना चाहिए था, क्योंकि पार्लियामेंट के जो हेड होते हैं एक तरह से वो राष्ट्रपति ही होते हैं.
Sidelining the President of India, the importance which has to be given to the President is not being given, and a lot of things today do not have the decorum which it should be having.
हमने तो भारत सरकार ने सबको विनंती किया है कि आप उपस्थित रहिए, सब अपनी अपनी भावना के अनुसार करेंगे.
ये एक निराधार बहस विपक्ष की ओर से उठाने का प्रयास किया जा रहा है, और ऐसा भी नहीं है कि इनके शासनकाल में इस तरह के उद्घाटन नहीं हुए इनके प्रधानमंत्रियों द्वारा.
Is this a game of one-upmanship between the centre and the BJP and the opposition? Is the politicization over parliament what the country needs? Joining me on this broadcast, spokesperson of the BJP, Guru Prakash Paswan, spokesperson of the Congress, Mohan Kumar Mangalam, also with me, and B.K. Agnihotri, former Secretary General of the Rajya Sabha and former Secretary of Parliamentary Affairs with the Union Government, also joins us on this broadcast. And Mohan Kumar Mangalam, I'd like to begin by asking you. Many say within the BJP and the central government that you've attended several such inaugurations of assemblies of different buildings within the parliament. At that time, there was no hue and cry made. Why then now make this about the Prime Minister and about his so-called vanity project, when what we should be celebrating is the country getting a new parliament building? It is about the country and the people of the country.
I agree with you. It is very much about the country and the people of the country and the constitution of our country, which in Article 79 very clearly says that the president and the two houses are what the parliament is comprised of. And so ignoring the president, not only in the inauguration, but also the then president in the foundation laying ceremony, is completely inappropriate. That is our main point, and that's the point that we've stressed in our letter more than anything else. And in return, or rather in response, all the BJP has come up with is past incidents with inaccurate or incomplete information. So, for example, you in your introduction mentioned that the late Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, had inaugurated the Parliament Annex in 1975. What you failed to mention was that it was President V.V. Giri who laid the foundation stone of that same very Parliament. In 2002, the Parliament Library was inaugurated by then President Mr. K.R. Narayanan. If you look at this government, President Govind, despite being the supreme commander of the defense forces, were not even invited to the inauguration of the National War Memorial in 2019. This Prime Minister seems to believe that he must occupy center stage on every event, regardless of what that event might be. He doesn't believe that he's first among equals on his cabinet either, as he rushes off to every single state to flag off a Vande Bharat train. I understand his need to be in the center or rather be the center of attention wherever he is. But when it comes to a parliament, it represents the will of the entire nation. It isn't just one person's sort of stage to celebrate his own self-importance and increase his visibility, which he always likes to do.
Sure.
So I would reiterate our points in the letter, which is basically that we believe the president is a fundamental part of parliament. I mean, for God's sake, the president has to sign off for any bill in from parliament to become law. And for them not to be present at such a solemn occasion is disgraceful, to say the least.
Sure, it's a disgrace to the president's office, Guru Prakash Paswan, says the opposition. They've used some very scathing words in that statement that has come out. They said that the BJP is sucking out the soul of democracy from the very temple of democracy.
Poonam, a very warm good evening to you and all my fellow panelists. Since the morning we have been debating this, and the hollowness and the hypocrisy of the opposition is also on the surface now. So look at this travesty of the observations of the opposition party, especially the Congress party. So the Congress party opposed the selection of the first ever tribal woman president in the 75 years of our history. They did not want Draupadi Murmu to become the president of India. They opposed her election tooth and nail. Point number one. Point number two, Mr. Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary, leader of the Congress party in the Lok Sabha, what was the term he used for the honorable president who comes from the tribal community? I cannot even say it here. The official national spokespersons of the Congress party, Mr. Ajay Kumar, Mr. Udit Raj, the Congress party has time and again insulted the office of president because she comes from a tribal background. We need to understand that the Congress party is an organization with a feudal mindset. There is a history of Congress party because they are not willing to accept anyone who is outside the first family. They are not willing to accept the fact that a humble chaiwala, a person from an extremely backward caste, a person who has seen humble origins is inaugurating the Parliament of India. They cannot simply digest the fact. But you look at it historically, Poonam, you would understand the Congress party insults Baba Saheb Ambedkar. The Congress party insulted Babu Jagjeevan Ram. The Congress party insulted its own national president, Mr. Sitaram Kesri. So the Congress party has a trajectory. The Congress party has a history. Congress party is a feudal institution that cannot see anyone emerge as a vocal voice, emerge as a leader from the disadvantaged community. But I'm thankful to the friends from media for exposing the sheer hypocrisy of the Congress party, that they will speak about Dalits, they will speak about tribals whenever it is convenient for them.
Sure.
But they will oppose the Dalits and tribals when they reach the highest constitution office in the country. This is the true face, and this is the highest
It's
order
double
of
standard for the opposition,
hypocrisy by the Congress
especially
party,
of the Congress party, Mohan Kumar Mangalam. That's the allegation you face.
How are these double standards? Let me ask the BJP in return. Did they not oppose the election of Pratibha Patil when we put her up for president as well? The election of the president is fought between two different ideologies. Opposing Mrs. Murmu's candidature from this side was about a fight between two political parties' ideologies. It wasn't to oppose her identity. Once she became a president, we gave her the required respect. What I'd wonder is if the BJP, who is claiming that they have given their president, or our president rather, the entire respect required, why isn't she invited? Why wasn't Mr. Govind invited either to the foundation laying ceremony? Why are they not invited, and why is it only the Prime Minister who wants to take center stage in these events that are supposedly about the entire population of our country. This represents the will of the people, as I'm saying again. So this charge of hypocrisy on the basis of us opposing Mrs. Murmu's candidature in the presidential election is ridiculous. It's fuzzy logic. As I reiterate, why did they oppose then the candidature of Mrs. Pratibha Patil back in the day when we were putting her up for president? What is their response to that? So these are baseless allegations. The fundamental problem is the Prime Minister, the deeply insecure man who wants to be at the center of every possible inauguration, whether that is a small train to a Twitter profile to now the parliament. He does not want to give space for any protocol or any propriety as long as he enjoys the entire frame of the camera.
So it's about your insult versus mine, your propriety versus mine. Is that what we've come down to, Guru Prakash Paswan? Why would the BJP, why would the central government not invite the Vice President, who also happens to preside over the Rajya Sabha sessions? The President and the Vice President both are kept out of this particular solemn occasion. If it is one to celebrate, then why keep out certain people? Is that not a fair question to ask of the BJP?
Poonam, I was patiently listening to my friend from the Congress party, and we definitely don't need any certificate from any of the leaders from the Congress party when it comes to the popularity of the Honorable Prime Minister. We saw what a historic and a remarkable reception he received in Australia. We saw the photo ops with the Honorable Head of State from Papua New Guinea. We are the 5th largest economy. We are hosting the G20. So we absolutely not need any sort of certification from the Congress party.
Again,
Point
this
number
is nonsensical.
2. I generally do not. I did not speak when you were speaking,
Mr.
sir.
Kumar Mangalam, you had your time.
False claims.
Poonam ji,
G20 is by rotation. If you're taking part in that, then good luck to you.
But
Poonam
sure,
ji, can
let
I
him
come in?
respond. Yes, Mr.
Poonam
Paswan,
ji,
go ahead.
Poonam ji, I think whenever we speak of constitutional propriety, we should also follow it, and just not for lip service. Let's just observe some constitutional principle. So yeah, point number 2. I generally do not indulge in whataboutery, but I have hundreds of such examples. You mentioned about Manipur. There is an example from Chhattisgarh Naveen Vidhan Sabha Bhavan, which was inaugurated by Madam Sonia Gandhi. In what capacity? She is neither a member of Legislative Assembly of Chhattisgarh Vidhan Sabha, nor the Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh, nor the Governor of Chhattisgarh. In what capacity did Sonia Gandhi ji participate in that inauguration of Chhattisgarh Vidhan Sabha Bhavan? Atal Tunnel Project, Raebareli Rail Coach Factory, 100 of such other significant projects are there, of which Sonia Gandhi ji was part. We have to understand one very simple and clear thing. The Congress party cannot think beyond the first family. The Congress party cannot think beyond Sonia Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi and Robert Vadra. It is clear that they cannot digest the fact, they cannot accept the fact that a humble tea seller, a humble person has achieved this height and is inaugurating the Sansad Bhavan. They cannot simply accept the fact. That's the fact of the matter.
Sure. So it's your leaders being present at occasions where they weren't really required to, versus why are you not inviting those people to such occasions that need to? Meanwhile, I want to get in a word from a neutral party as well. V.K. Agnihotri has been patiently listening to all the allegations and counter-allegations that have been made. But V.K. Agnihotri, as a former Secretary of Parliamentary Affairs, someone who's worked closely with the government, I want to ask you, is this just a matter of politics, or is there really a breach of protocol as the opposition alleges?
Well, I'm glad to participate in this debate, but I would like to make a clear distinction between the parliament and the parliament building. What is being talked about now is parliament building, and the president is definitely the head of the parliament. And as per the constitution, he is required to address the first meeting of the parliament, joint sitting or the two houses sitting together every year. So that is a more important role for the president than inaugurating projects here and there, which is the job of the executive. That is my view.
Mr. Mohan Kumar Mangalam, you've had someone who's worked with the government in the past, a UPA government in the past, where he was Secretary of Parliamentary Affairs. He says there's a distinction that has to be made. The fine print is important. It may not be as much as a breach of protocol as the opposition would like the country to believe. Mr. Kumar Mangalam, can you hear me? I believe we do not have that line with the Congress spokesperson. We'll try and reconnect with Mr. Kumar Mangalam, but Guru Prakash Paswan of the BJP continues to be with us. Now, Mr. Paswan, the Congress's allegation for the precedents that the BJP narrates is that you cannot compare a parliament building to legislative buildings or different buildings within the parliament annex. It's not a fair comparison to make. It's comparing apples to oranges.
Now, Poonam, we must understand that we live in a federalism, and federalism, there is no arrangement or there is no hierarchy as such. A legislative assembly is as important as a parliamentary building, and I'm thankful to the Secretary General from the former Secretary for the Parliament Affairs Secretary, who has made it very clear, who has made it sufficiently clear that the institution of Parliament, the constitutional definition of Parliament and Parliament, the building are two different things. The opposition is clearly misleading here, and like I said, it is the habit of the opposition party. And you look at the history, you look at the National War Memorial, similar hue and cry was made. You look at the unveiling of the statue of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, similar hue and cry was made. You look at the renaming of Rajpath to Kartavya Path, similar hue and cry was made. You look at the change of song in the beating retreat ceremony, similar hue and cry was made. I want to quote an article from The Guardian. The Guardian came out with an editorial on 26th of May 2014, India's new tryst with destiny. And that article in The Guardian categorically observed that 26th of May 2014 is the day when the British finally left India. Because as long as Congress was in power, there was some semblance of British government in India. Why cannot we think independently? Why can we not think of Atmanirbhar Bharat? Today, we have an India which is assertive, which is aspirational. We are the global pharmacy of the world. Everyone is looking at us. We are the voice of the global south. We are the new leader. We are shaping the contours of the global political discourse. Why should we not have our own parliament building?
Sure.
This is a resilient infrastructure. This is indication of Atmanirbhar Bharat, and the Congress party must accept it without any hue and cry.
Sure. Mr. Kumar Mangalam, if you're back with us, and if you heard what Mr. Agnihotri had to say before I went to Mr. Paswan, he says that there is a difference between the parliament as an institution and the parliament building. The opposition is cherry picking in this particular case. The affront, as you claim, to the president's office is not really the case, because this is just about a building. It's not about the institution of the parliament.
I don't agree with Mr. Agnihotri, and I feel that he's maybe making more light of this occasion than he should be. It is a fairly momentous occasion. And I want to, besides saying that, go back to a little bit of what Mr. Paswan was saying before, when he said that we can't seem to look beyond one family. I want to say that I don't think they can look beyond one man in their party. I applaud the Prime Minister for coming from whatever alleged origins he's come from. We have no problem with that. But the problem here is that whether it is a small train being launched, whether it is a building being inaugurated, whether it is a stadium that he's named after himself in Gujarat, the Prime Minister seems to want to be at the center of every event and not take everybody along. If he is as popular as Mr. Paswan says he is abroad as well as in states, if his road shows and his come to Jesus rallies, if you will, like he did in
Mr.
Karnataka.
Kumar, let's get to the point. I'm running short of time on this debate. You've already said this. Yes, get to the point.
I'm getting to the point. Yes, I am trying to get to the point. My point is that he needs to then show leadership by taking everybody along, bringing the president or the vice president to the table, and ensuring that the opposition that constitutes 62% of the vote in the vote share in the last election is also at the event.
But the opposition is invited.
You cannot consecrate the temple
But the
of
opposition
democracy
is
without an
invited.
opposition.
The opposition has decided to boycott the event.
The opposition is boycotting the event because of the lack of calling the president or the vice president to the event, both of whom are extremely central. They should be the ones inaugurating this complex. I'm just reiterating myself here.
But don't you think the opposition is also doing a disservice to the very idea of democracy by skipping an event like this?
I think, in fact, we will go down in history as having served democracy, as giving opposition to an event that is actually violating protocol and is against all forms of propriety.
Sure. So it's the allegations and counter-allegations continue. The controversy is only going to snowball ahead of the inauguration on Sunday. Unfortunately, I'm completely out of time, so I'll have to leave it at that. But I thank you both gentlemen for joining us here on this broadcast. Now, that's not the only big story that we've been speaking of for the last 24 to 48 hours. It's also the 3-day trip to Australia of the Prime Minister and the 3-nation tour that has been wrapped up by him. He's en route India. Lots happened over the last 3 days, diplomacy-wise, business-wise, and of course the bonhomie that we saw between the two Prime Ministers of India and Australia. Here's all that's transpired. My colleague and managing editor, Anand Narasimhan, getting us this exclusive from Australia.
प्रधानमंत्री अल्बनीजी से वार्ता में हमने अगले दशक में अपनी कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप को नई ऊंचाइयों पर ले जाने पर बात की।
This is my 6th meeting with Prime Minister Modi in just the 1 year and now 1 day. That shows the strength of our relationship.
भारत और ऑस्ट्रेलिया के सौहार्दपूर्ण रिश्तों को कोई भी तत्व अपने विचारों या अपने एक्शन से आघात पहुंचाए, ये हमें स्वीकार्य नहीं है।
She's in the thick of all the action, and she's one person I've been wanting to speak with, and perhaps, let's say, good karma, or how it's fated to be. We've been able to get 10 minutes with Foreign Minister Penny Wong. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
How do you see the equations between India and Australia? And I'm speaking to you soon after the joint statement by the Prime Ministers.
Enormous amount of momentum in the relationship, which is fantastic. As you know, there's been a lot of visits to and from. Prime Minister Albanese was in New Delhi in March. We're privileged to host Prime Minister Modi here. A number of my colleagues and I have been in India this year, and we hope to continue that pace of bilateral engagement. But last night was a sight to behold, wasn't it? And you know, the energy and vibrancy of the diaspora here, which is really how did Prime Minister Modi describe it? The beating heart of the relationship and a bridge between the two countries. Well, I thought that was on display last night.
Yes, and he's also said, Prime Minister has also said, this has now gotten into T20 mode, if you were to use a cricketing analogy. So,
you know, I'm a Test cricket fan, not a T20 fan. But T20 is like, you know,
moving things faster.
Moving fast. That's right.
Moving faster. So
we're getting stuff done.
So, what are the key areas where you think this partnership is going to grow between India and Australia?
Well, look, we are very strategically aligned, and at a time where the region is changing, and we all know the competition which we are seeing in the region and the way in which the regional and global order are being reshaped. I think there is a lot of alignment between Australia and India about the sort of region we want. You know, I think open, stable, inclusive, prosperous Indo-Pacific, and we will want to work together towards that. India is a regional power and a global power, and it will only grow in its power as well as in its population and in its economic development. So we see this as a partnership for a very, very long time about a region and about our values.
Are you enthused that this thought process is bipartisan? So be it Labour or Liberal?
Yes. Look, I was Shadow Foreign Minister, so the spokesperson in opposition for a very long time. In fact, much longer than I wished. But the benefit of that is it enabled me to do a lot of thinking about foreign policy and a lot of work. And one of the conclusions I came to was the importance of making sure there was an aspect of our engagement, a very large component or aspect of how we engage with the world, which is bipartisan. And so I was, we will continue to work in that way. We were very supportive of the previous government's efforts to improve the relationship or to deepen the relationship, and I hope my counterparts will be the same.
How have your engagements with Dr. Jaishankar been? I think you people have been engaging and speaking to build up to this bilateral and to sign, because Prime Minister Albanese spoke about mobility and migration. There is a consulate opening in Brisbane. There's a consulate opening in Bangalore.
Yes, we've done a lot of work across our systems to ensure that we've got some concrete outcomes out of the bilateral discussion today, which includes the work on green hydrogen, the work on the partnership on migration and mobility, the Consul General in Brisbane and ours in Bengaluru. But I would make this point about Dr. Jaishankar. He's a very deep strategic thinker, and I have really valued the intellectual engagement as well, and I've learnt a lot from my discussions with him, and I always go away with some insights into how India perceives the world and regional dynamics from India's perspective. So he's very impressive.
You're a champion for climate change and sustainability. I see a lot of sustainable measures which are evident in Australia. India, on its growth path, is now embracing sustainability and climate change. How can Australia help India, and how can these two nations?
Energy.
Yeah, energy. Renewable energy.
Yes. Well, I think to continue to develop, India needs energy. All countries need energy, but those countries who are at on that development path need a very almost exponential growth in energy generation. So the key task is, how do we make sure that that energy is from clean energy sources? There's a big transition there, but it's a very important area for cooperation.
Does that include the other Asia-Oceania nations, leadership of the Global South? Prime Minister Narendra Modi also spoke about bringing these nations to the spotlight, those flyover, passover nations, and he said India and Australia can really work jointly.
Yes, well, look, as you know, Prime Minister Modi came to Australia, but prior to that, he went to Papua New Guinea for the FIPIC summit, and in fact, my Prime Minister spoke about the importance of that today in the bilateral meeting. We see India's engagement with the countries of the region, both in the Pacific, but also obviously the Indian Ocean, which is a particular area of leadership for India, as really critical. But I'll make 2 points. First is elevating the voices of small island nations, small island developing states, is really important on climate, because they have a very first-hand perspective.
Yes, and it's a shrinking landmass for them. They're losing
islands
by the decade.
Or they're losing arable land because of salinity, etc. But the second point that we all have to remember is there's no point in playing geopolitics with climate. It doesn't negotiate. And there is no answer for humanity unless we all participate. So, we have to build agreement that is around everyone doing something, because if it degenerates to people pointing fingers about who should have done or who must do more, we're all going to suffer.
But do you see congruence coming there, or are there still geopolitical pressures?
Of course. I was the climate change minister at Copenhagen, so I saw a lot of geopolitics then. But my message will continue, and Australia's message will continue to be the same. We all lose. You might win, this meeting outcome, or you might get this outcome. You think that's great, but ultimately, your family, your children, your grandchildren, they lose.
Yeah, because I think I remember this quote from the president of Kiribati. He says, if Kiribati sinks, then so does Mumbai.
Exactly.
So that's what's going to happen. So it's not so far away as everybody thinks. Let me ask you one thing which you feel needs to be done, which is the bump which would perhaps smoothen the equations, indoors require?
I think that I have been engaged in a number of, visits to India, discussions about and with Indian counterparts before we came into government, and I think we've talked for a long time about improving the economic aspect of the relationship. The sort of stereotypical position is we're really good on the strategic aspects but not so much on the economic. Well, we need to have the economic work, don't we? And there's a fair bit of focus on that, as you would have seen from Prime Minister Modi's statements, but also the announcements out of the bilateral today.
But to take the ECTA forward to a CECA, what needs to be done? I think what's the biggest bump? Let me ask you that.
Well, I mean, I'm an Australian, so I would say, obviously we want meaningful market access, and but I think if people can think laterally and creatively about the areas where we can work more closely together, then I'm hopeful that the CECA will be an ambitious agreement. And I'd like it to be. We've recently opened, last night we announced the board and the location of the Centre for Australia-India Relations. In Parramatta, which will be great because so much of the diaspora is there, and that's such a source of energy for the relationship. But I've said to them, look, I really want to know what are some of the things we can do on the economic front to facilitate more economic engagement. And so it's not just the large companies, but it's also the diaspora, there's a lot of entrepreneurs here in Australia and in India, and they've done a lot of work on the economic relationship. I'm sure we can leverage that up more.
Did the strength of the diaspora surprise you yesterday?
No, I mean, I was not so much surprised, but I suppose moved by it, excited by it, inspired by it. But I have engaged enough with Indian Australians to know the extent of their pride and their joy in their culture and their history, and there was a celebration of and their future, their excitement for their future.
They're very excited about the Little India Gateway at Harris Park, but there are also concerns about extremist elements, secessionist elements. Prime Minister did speak about it in his joint statement today. You think that's going to be addressed, Billy?
Well, I'd say this, and I've made this really clear. We guard our multiculturalism fiercely in Australia. And we guard the social cohesion which underpins that. We are one of the most multicultural societies in the world, and the social cohesion and the values which underpin that matter to us. That's why there is no space for hate and bigotry, and there is no space for violence. And we've had an appropriate security response to the violence against religious places, including Hindu temples, and that is to be condemned. And what we would say is there is no place for that in Australia. People have a right to peaceful protest. That is something Australians expect. But there is a line, and we do not want people to cross it, and if that is crossed, then obviously the law will respond.
No, I respect that. Vandalism, violence, protest is one aspect. Hate is another aspect. But the messaging is now secessionist. So that's where the concern is. Is the government, Australian government?
Well, as I've said, I mean the so-called, the protest which was held, the so-called referendum is simply a protest. It has no effect and ought to be dismissed in terms of any effect. So I mean, I don't even want to talk about the territorial integrity of India because it seems to sort of give weight to something which has no weight.
Point well taken. So final two questions.
Two questions.
This is final two questions.
No, this is like T20. He's doing a T20.
So I was coming to the cricket aspect.
This is like,
You've got an open invitation to come and watch the Cricket World Cup and also celebrate Diwali with us. So will you take up that offer?
Look, if I can, I will. I know the Prime Minister is very keen on doing that. But I'll see if I'm able to, or whether it needs to be, I need to be elsewhere while he's in India. But you know, it is amazing what has happened in India with cricket over the last 20 years. I mean, I'm old enough to remember watching Tendulkar.
Tendulkar, yes.
I do.
Yes,
I remember. It was actually probably the best innings I've ever seen. Actually.
Your impressions about Virat Kohli? He's going to go head to head with the Australian team very soon.
Well, we had a joke. We had a joke about the cricket in the meeting today, and I said Australians are getting used to the fact that we're probably winning less often. We're winning less often now, aren't we? And we don't like it.
No, you don't like it.
No, not really.
But you're looking forward to the World Test Championship, the final.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Minister Wong. Thank you very much for your time.
It's great to be with you.
That's Penny Wong. Very hard to get. But very candid, very straightforward, and amazing conversation. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Cheers.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Builder. Now, can you imagine the Westminster Abbey, the British Parliament without Westminster Abbey? Can you imagine the US Congress without the Capitol Hill? And suddenly you say that Trump wanted to suddenly, because he felt suddenly had this urge after naming a stadium after himself. He decided to also now make a parliament building and inaugurate it.
No, but Dr. Ajay Kumar, the sanction for this new parliament building was given by the UPA when the UPA was in power. Jairam Ramesh was the minister concerned at that time. Meera Kumar was the Speaker of the House at that time. So you also recognize the need that after delimitation in 2026, the strength of the Lok Sabha will increase, the strength of the Rajya Sabha will increase. Parliament will have to seat something like 1,200 MPs. You realize that as well. You recognize that need, and that's why when the UPA 2 was in power, you signed off on it. What the opposition is saying is two things. One, that this is a vanity project. There was no need for a new parliament building. This was a vanity project by the Prime Minister. And two, they're saying that if at all anyone should inaugurate this new building, it should be the President and not the Prime Minister.
So first things first, if it was a vanity now, then how come, can you please connect the echo? There's an echo.
Yeah, we'll fix that. Yeah, but go on.
This was a vanity in 2022. How come it was a priority in 2011-2012 where Mr. Jairam Ramesh and no less than Meera Kumar, the Speaker, herself gave approval for the new building? So 2012 mein priority, but now it has become vanity. So this shows the hypocrisy, and Congress is the mother of hypocrisy. Now, as far as the President is concerned, first of all, on the constitutional scheme of things, let me tell you, Zaka, the President heads the executive, the legislature is Parliament, the Parliament is headed is by the Speaker has invited the Prime Minister, who also sits in Parliament. The President actually doesn't sit in Parliament. And if this was constitutionally incorrect, Zaka, not only the instances of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi, who inaugurated various parliamentary installations, but let me show you something very interesting. This is the picture of the Assembly of Manipur being inaugurated by whom? Not even the Governor of Manipur or the Chief Minister, by Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. This is another interesting one. Tamil Nadu Assembly, not by the Governor, by Sonia Gandhi and Manmohan Singh. And this is Tripura Assembly. Now pray and tell me, if the President should be inaugurating the Parliament building, then how come Prime Minister Manmohan Singh was inaugurating Assembly building? Shouldn't it have been the Governor? But forget that also. If they have so much newfound respect for the Honorable President, they should now start by saying sorry that we did not vote for her. Instead, we voted for a turncoat like Yashwant Sinha. And they must also tell us that this is the same Congress party, and Ajay Kumar is joining us, who called her a person, quote unquote, of evil mindset.
Okay.
In fact, the JMM took opposition to that. So much for the Samman for Draupadi Murmuji, they boycotted her first speech. So please, I think this newfound respect that they have, having said that, it doesn't evade the fact that Congress, every project which is done in national interest, they do a U-turn and they start opposing it. Perhaps this time because they're not getting to eat any commission out of it. So maybe that's why, or maybe because they don't like Atman.
Let me ask Riju Datta, as we await Dr. Ajay Kumar's line to be put through. Riju Datta, today the TMC has become the first opposition party to officially say that you will not be part of the inauguration ceremony on Sunday. Now, I said this at the opening of my show as well, that this parliament building is going to long outlast Modi. Modi, is not going to be in power forever. But this parliament building is for all parliamentarians, for ruling party and for opposition. So tomorrow, those who are in opposition could be in power. Why don't you see this in the spirit of democracy, that this institution is going to far outlast individuals, and therefore when a new institution is being inaugurated, you should be part of it. Why are you boycotting it?
Right. Zaka, like you rightly pointed out, it's the temple of democracy. Now, if I am not very wrong, the other two big democratic nations like the United Kingdom of the United States, their parliaments have been standing resolute since the 1700s. So all of a sudden, the Congress before and now the BJP have wanted this. Now when the Central Vista project started, I clearly said it and my party said it, that when it was started, it was in the midst of the COVID crisis where people were gasping for breath and dying due to lack of oxygen in Delhi. This project was being continued. Now, third point, we always believe that the president should inaugurate. Now, the counter claim that BJP said that Rajiv Gandhi opened the parliamentary library, they opened the Vidhan Sabha. Okay, if there is an annex building that the speaker can inaugurate, if there is a chai ka tapdi tomorrow inside the parliament, Shahzad can also inaugurate. But as the largest, as the temple of democracy, which will house the upper and the lower houses, we believe the head of the constitution, the president should inaugurate. This Shahzad said, we supported Yashwant Sinha. My leader Mamata Banerjee clearly came out and said, if BJP would have announced their candidate, Miss Murmu, right at the onset, we would have supported Miss Murmu. So there is no contest.
No, Riju, but once again, you are saying, oh, you opposed it in 2020 when there was COVID and people were gasping for breath. That was 3 years ago. This is 2023, and this parliament building is probably going to be there for another 50, 60, maybe even 100 years, right? The question then is, why are you opposing something that is going to far outlast individual political personalities who may be there right now?
Because it is absolutely based on fundamentals. Prime Minister Modi, even though he is the Prime Minister of India, he is also the largest and the only leader of a political party that we oppose. So instead of him, I think...
Well, we're soaking in the sights of Sydney, and guess who I bumped into, and he's been very, very nice and agreeable to have a quick chat on the sidelines. Tej Singh Devji, the Chhattisgarh Health Minister, is with us. Thank you very much, sir. Pleasure and a very pleasant surprise to see you here.
What being here? We are here with the delegation of the Health Department from Chhattisgarh. We are interacting with some of the institutions here. We interacted with the Gold Coast University. Yesterday we had an interaction with the local university here in Sydney. Today with the George Institute. In Melbourne we have another meeting, another interaction. And on the 29th we have an interaction with the New Zealand government in Auckland. So basically we are trying to see what they are doing in health here. We have similar populations, though the economic levels are very different. They are a developed country, we are a developing country. So the availability of funds is what sets us apart. Otherwise, skills, our doctors are as good, if not, I wouldn't say better, but we are there. There are no issues. Research, they have more. They tend to put in more time and effort in research. So that is what we want to pick up on. So whether it is in nutrition, whether it was in non-invasive brain surgery, whether it is in trauma, whether it is in diabetes. So we are talking to them on all these issues and how we can relate. We signed an MOU also with an organization. So they have their Indian counterpart there, subject to clearance from the Government of India. There are a few formalities, I believe. So that will also come into operation. So food habits, nutrition in general, its impact on the health of the people, their longevity, as well as their productivity in life, infant mortality, maternal mortality, all these things get linked up with let us say nutrition.
Health and education also are context or perhaps contours of conversations within the bilateral engagement which has happened. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is here, I'm sure you're aware. The greater cooperation between the two nations, India and Australia. What more is possible? What are the possibilities? If you were to look beyond the realm of just purely what is happening in Chhattisgarh, or from Chhattisgarh taking it on further into India, where do you think greater collaboration can happen?
Technology. We have adopted the technology mission. We need to run fast on that. We are advanced in the world as far as the IT sector is concerned. And all these applications in our governance must come now rather than tomorrow or delayed tomorrow. So that is a challenge which we must take up immediately. It seems to be close to the heart of the Prime Minister too. It's a coincidence that we are here, a happy coincidence. We saw the welcome Modi helicopter.
But I didn't see you there at the Kudos Bank Arena.
That was, we wouldn't have been able to meet. And we were engaged with the prior commitments we had with the university, etc.
One aspect was both Labour and Liberal MPs from the Australian polity were there. So cutting across the aisle, there is this conversation and conscious acceptance that India-Australia equations need to work. And they seem to still engage despite being opposed to each other. Do you think that's possible in India?
It should always be so. It is the nation eventually, the people who we are working for. We are not working for ourselves, or we are not supposed to be working for ourselves, or even in a limited sense for our political parties. These political parties and us as individuals are agencies to work for the betterment of society, people at large, the nation together as an entity. And for that, these immature divisions should dissipate. They are immature, and they shouldn't be built up upon. They should dissipate, and whoever will be able to deliver at that point in time, people will support that combination.
You think you have like-minded peers and also counterparts?
I hope so. I hope so.
Well, thank you very much. It was a short but very engaging conversation. Thank you for your time, sir. Good to see you here.
Same here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So that's T.S. Singh Devji. I've caught him having a walk, going over to his next engagement here along the Sydney Harbour with the Opera House behind us, the Harbour Bridge to our right. Great sights, fantastic but great conversation too. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
Sir. Thank you. Krish, let me start with you and ask you, what are the possibilities? You've been in the education business, you've been in Australia for a long, long time. You're a permanent resident, if I remember correctly, but you still hold the Indian citizenship. So what's possible in the education sphere between India and Australia?
So, Anand, I've been in the industry for 20 odd years. I came as an international student myself, so I've gone through the experience. And after that, we have set up education institutes here. What has changed recently, especially with the new education policy, that now Australian universities or any other top 100 ranked universities are actually allowed to operate in India. So there is a lot of trade happening, especially in the gift city in Gujarat, where a couple of universities have signed up. We are actively involved in setting up some Australian university campuses there as well. So endless possibilities right now.
Right, but do you feel this gap of understanding of Australia or university, Gavin, where in India everybody thinks how much of land is the university is on, how spread out is it?
It is a little bit different, but when the students arrive, they realise that the most important things is location. So they want to be in the city centre, they want to be where the work opportunities are, they want to be near transport links. So it's really important that we are able to offer them campus experiences that are close to where they live, where they work, and where they're going to have their social life as well when they're in Australia.
It's a different philosophy though, because there it's about residential schools, it's about far away from the madding crowd. We'll give you education where it's only about education. So it's a very different philosophy. So do you find it difficult to marry it?
Yeah, once people get their head around the difference, they really appreciate what we're offering, because it's a very intimate experience where we know the students by their names and they feel very much a part of a community, a support network. And that's really what we're able to offer them by having smaller, more intimate experiences for them.
From the mind of a student, Lauren, one of the first things is when I apply to a university is, are they going to give me a visa to continue to stay on after my graduation? What are the kind of jobs that I'm getting? What's going to be my starting salary? I'm going to sink in thousands, if not lakhs of dollars. So what are the chances?
Yeah, so it's, that is a huge challenge for students. I mean, obviously, employability is a very important aspect, and I think at ECA we take it very seriously across the ECA group. So what we've seen really from data that we have in 2022 is that 6 out of 10 students have not found employment 4 months after graduation. And I think that is a very important aspect which all universities are looking to kind of work towards in Australia. There are challenges for students when they actually have to get out there and get jobs in place, but At this point in time, unemployment is very low, close to 3.7%. So there are opportunities there. But I think what employers are looking for is that specific set of skills that students can come in and hit the ground running. And I think that is what we're trying to work towards, sort of build those skills which students can get and actually hit the ground running.
No, that's where I've saved the best for last, because that young man there, he's developed a tool. It's called open learning. Adam, tell us about open learning and how does this entire aspect of upskilling or finding the gaps to increase your employability happen? I believe you're basing it on artificial intelligence, correct me if I'm wrong, and which also allows you to design curriculums or figure out gaps. So tell us how this works.
That's exactly right. So Open Learning is one of the world's largest online learning platforms with over 3.5 million students. And I founded the company actually out of university with some fellow students at the University of New South Wales. And we've built this platform to make it possible to increase access to higher quality education, because there's a lot of content out there in the world, and you can find things on YouTube, Wikipedia. But if you actually want to learn something, you have to work with other people, solve problems, do project-based learning activities, and all of that should lead towards a portfolio. And the portfolio is what you take to an employer to show you've learned something. So Open Learning has done this over the past 10 years, working with hundreds of universities and colleges around the world, enabling them to build really high-quality courses, and now doing that using generative AI to really lift the standard of education.
Adam platform is also a national platform in Malaysia. So all the public universities are on the platform, and they have trained actually 10,000 professors in Malaysia. And now we are launching this in India, where the agenda is basically the high quality curriculum, right? Because not everyone comes from the higher middle class family.
Correct.
So I had this vision that how do I train and educate, lower middle class people. So with Open Learning platform, we have got.
It's a lovely evening sky here. Winter, the chill will start setting in even as the sun sets. I've got a lovely Sydney Harbour bridge right behind me. And this is the entire harbour. The ferry is coming in. It's beautiful. But my VJ Arpit would say that it's against light. So we'll show you another view. That's the Sydney Opera House. And this is just perfect setting to have a conversation with two gentlemen who are not only plying their wares in Australia for more than a decade, but they are eagerly willing to contribute to India. So that's a story of education with Rupesh Singh, and Manish is an IT professional. He's been here for more than 15 years. So we're going to look back at the last 2 days and what's changed for the Indian diaspora here in Australia and the India-Australia story in the last 24 to 48 hours. Did the headlines make a difference to you this morning? Manish, let me ask you that.
Yeah, it did make a big difference, and we are really proud of Mr. Modi. And I just want to share my story quickly. So yesterday, we had a big event at Olympic Park. So I was just getting ready, and my office colleagues out of nowhere called me, and they were like, "Oh, you took a half day today. So what's going on? Are you going to the Mr. Modi's event?" I said, "How do you know?" And they said, "It's a big news everywhere." And I was like, "Yes, I am going," and I felt really proud about it. So his presence made a big difference in Australia, and I think his motto is mutual respect, as he said yesterday, and mutual understanding. So that makes a lot of difference to us, and we are really proud of him. If people in Australia are talking about him, whether I am attending or not, then it's a big deal. And they were like, "You are so lucky that you're going to that event. We wish we could have gone there too." So that was like a carnival for us yesterday. It was an amazing experience for me, and it's once in a lifetime, I guess, for me. So it was really amazing. And
what stood out for you from the Prime Minister's message yesterday? Did his energy stand out, or the way his messaging was in terms of facts, mutual respect? He talked about CDE, the 3 M's, and then he was doing a quiz like the facts. He was also pushing the India story. Did that make a difference, and how?
I believe he's a great communicator. Whatever he does, he tell people in a really amazing way. He didn't miss anything at all. I was thinking, how can he remember every single bit? How many places we are number 1, where we are number 2, and where we are number 3, and it was all in his head. And I have learned a lot from him, that you should have a really good memory.
He's in the education sector, and Rupesh, I have to thank you for helping me around and find my way, navigate my way in Sydney over the last 72 hours. So special thanks to you for that. But what's changed in the last 48 hours? Because you've been watching this very carefully.
Yeah, so Anand, first of all, thank you. It's been a pleasure to actually look after you and assist you in any way. You've been a great company. But I tell you, I've been here 25 years. and mainly in education. But after 2014 visit from Prime Minister Modi, a lot has changed. You know, the feeling we used to have, you know, as an Indian, yes, we are from developing country, there are cows on the road, there is traffic, etc., etc. No one talks like that anymore.
So, आपको क्या लगता है, what more needs to be done? As an Australian with roots in India, what would you like India to do?
Yeah, I think what I have seen, especially after bilateral agreement has been signed, that there is significant visits are happening between two countries, right? Which is ministers are coming, business people are coming, we are being approached all the time. Our partner universities in Australia, they want to do more, which was not the case in the past because the policies were not clear. India has one of the big young generations. So 20 million people turning 18 every year, right? So that means they need to be trained, they need to be skilled. And then Australian universities can play a major role. So I guess what I am working with Australian universities, not to try to just sell a $20,000 course there, but also assist Indian universities in terms of curriculum sharing, in terms of training the professors and lecturers, so we can actually scale and assist India. So that, it is two-way partnership. Otherwise what happens is we get thousands of Indian students and Indian universities also see, oh look, now you're here just to grab our student. So I guess what we are educating to our university partners is let's have a two-way partnership. We get thousands of students, let's give back something in return.
The recent issues of vandalism which have happened, recent issues of bigotry, hate which has happened, some kind of messaging which is secessionist. Prime Minister talked about Algawad. The reassurance that's come from Prime Minister Albanese, how much of that is it going to enthuse the diaspora, or would you see more action rather than talk? What do you want to see?
Yeah, look, what we like to see is definitely what happened in UK. We don't want here at all. So we want Australian government to be proactive and engage with Indian communities and understand these issues really in detail. And they can see what's going to happen so that they can have things in place so it doesn't happen, because these little things, look, I have to say Australia is a pretty safe country. You can have a peaceful protest.
Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. The political storm over the inauguration of the new Parliament building continues to escalate. 20 opposition parties, including the Congress, the TMC, Aam Aadmi Party and the BRS, have decided to boycott the inauguration Sunday. The opposition parties released a joint statement accusing the centre of sidelining and insulting the president, demanding that the new Parliament building be unveiled by the first citizen. The new building is a symbol of Atmanirbhar Bharat. It truly reflects the spirit of modern India. Calls for modernising Parliament were made during the UPA era as well. But from attacks over the expenditure and then a jibe on this being a vanity project, the opposition has been constantly moving the goalpost. And now the latest happens to be that of protocol. Is national pride being politicised by the opposition? After all, this is a parliament not just for the ruling party of the current dispensation. This is a parliament for democracy, a parliament for the people, a parliament for the ruling and the opposition party.
20 opposition parties have decided to boycott the inauguration of the new Parliament building on the 28th of May. They claim it's a breach of parliamentary propriety that Prime Minister Modi is unveiling the new Parliament instead of President Draupadi Murmu.
First item that is taken up for consideration by the Parliament every year is the motion of thanks to the President of India. So President is the head of the Parliament. We are committed to the Constitution of India and we are committed to safeguarding it. That is the signal. While the government and the Prime Minister is committed to destroying the Constitution of India.
The Aam Aadmi Party and the Trinamool Congress were the first to